Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.
The conventions are coming up. We know who the nominees are going to be. Why are the conventions still important?
Well, conventions still matter, even in an age of 24-hour cable and the internet. Something as old as having delegates from different states gather in one city still matters because of the way it dominates the media landscape. It gives each of the political parties, a solid 4 days of uninterrupted time to get their message out, and it still counts.
Do businesses listen to that message? I mean, does American business, does Wall Street, are they listening to that message?
Business is listening to the message, and they're listening to the music and the undertones of a convention, trying to get some sense of what a new administration would mean for them. They participate directly in the conventions. It's one of the few events where corporations can just give directly without having it just be their employees. So you have big sponsors at these conventions, and then they're keeping a very close eye on what the tone is at these things.
Now, both the conventions, they've got 16 big corporate advertisers, not necessarily because they agree with that party, but because it's a place for them to get their message out. Do you see more corporate involvement in this convention than you have in conventions that you've covered in the past?
Yeah, I think they just, conventions just keep getting bigger. In a way, it's inversely proportional to how much actually gets decided there. Because, we're long past the days when nominees are actually decided at these things. But there's more and more interest for a corporation. It's a very respectable forum in which to advertise one's product or brand. And so corporations like this kind of thing.
Media, obviously, there are a lot of reporters there. 4 years ago, we saw the first real bloggers playing a role in the convention. This year, they promise to be more. Comment on the role of the media at these conventions.
Well, it's a total media saturation, and I think that makes it a little harder for the bloggers to stand out. I think in a way the bloggers have made their names when they've gone after things that the mainstream media has missed. But when they're all in the same room, I think the big dogs will kind of have the upper hand. Bloggers, remain an important factor, and people are going to read them, but I don't think they'll be quite as important for these 4 days.
This year, we've got back-to-back conventions. Normally, there are a couple of weeks between the Democrats and the Republicans. How does that change the dynamic?
Well, I think it makes the conventions more important. They're much later this year than they usually are because of the Olympics. So there's not a kind of languid period after the conventions, but before Labor Day. So it's right in your face. And I think having them back to back, people will be able to make much more direct comparisons. How did the first night go? What were the keynoters like? What was the acceptance speech like by the nominees? I think it'll be an interesting juxtaposition.